This is the second graph over here. Our parent function is 2 to the x that's being transformed. Plugging in the x plus 2 instead of x means it's moving 2 left. Then we have the negative sign, which is a reflection over the x-axis. And then the last thing is the minus 3 is 3 down. So 2 to the x power over here, 2 to the 0 is 1, 2 to the first power is 2, 2 to the second power is 4, 2 to the negative 1 power is 1/2, and so on. So 2 to the x looks like this. It starts out growing slowly, and then at some point it starts growing very quickly. Our horizontal asymptote over here is at 0. Now we're going to look at the transformation over here. Again, every point that we graphed over here is going to be shifted to left over here. Then it's going to be shifted down, so 1 becomes -1. And then it's going to be shifted, moved down by 3. So -1 becomes -4, actually right here. All right, our second point at 1, 2 is shifted 2 to the left. It's shifted down to -2, and then it's moved down by 3, so it's at -5. The third point over here that was at 2, 4. It is moved 2 to the left to 0. It is flipped down to -4, and it's moved down by 3 more, is at -7. So over here, our horizontal asymptote is only affected by the downward move, so it's at -3. Our logarithm has a vertical asymptote. Our exponential function has a horizontal asymptote. So our graph looks like this. And then to answer those questions below, actually before we do that, another thing we could do is just plug in some points. So maybe you want to plug in x equals 0. When I plug in 0, I have 2 to the second power, which is 4. Make that negative is -4, minus 3 is -7. So we have our point 0, -7. Then the other two we graphed was -1 and -2. And so plugging in -1 for x, -1 plus 2 is 1. 2 to the first power is 2. Make it negative, becomes -2. Minus 3 is -5. So we have our point at -1, -5. And then our last point we graphed over here was for x equals -2. -2 plus 2 is 0. 2 to the 0 power is 1. Make it negative, it becomes -1. -1 minus 3 is -4. So here are 3 points, and whether we're using the original points and we're transforming them, or we're simply plugging in new points, gives us the same graph and the same numbers. So let's go down and look at what happens to our transformation, domain, range, and asymptote. The order of our transformation first is left 2. Then it's a reflection across the x-axis. And then the last thing is down 3. This is the correct order for doing those transformations. Our domain, when we're looking at our graph over here, for our x, we can plug in anything. So that's from -infinity to +infinity. Our range is going to be determined by our asymptote over here. And since it flipped down, so our original graph had a domain from 0 to infinity. When we moved our graph 2 to the left, our range was still from 0 to infinity. When we flipped our graph down, our range was now from negative infinity to 0 because it was below the x-axis. And then when we moved our graph down, our range was from negative infinity to -3. Again, if we're looking at our y values over here, that would be anything below -3, where our x values could be anything from negative infinity to positive infinity. Last thing we want to write down is the asymptote. So this time it's a horizontal asymptote, which is y is equal to -3. Always make sure you give an equation.